Welcome to Agentic Workflows The Money Series, Episode 2.
Yeah.
Build the Upwork Job Scraper.
It is good to be back, and today we are getting serious.
We really are. You know, we spend so much time on this deep dive talking about the theory of AI.
Yeah.
We get into the future of work, the philosophy, the big picture stuff. And don't get me wrong, I love it. It's why we're here.
Yeah.
But today feels different.
It is different.
It feels tangible.
It is tangible. We're moving from the abstract to the very concrete, specifically to what our source material for this whole deep dive calls hard cash.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hard cash. We are done just admiring the technology from a distance. This is about building a machine. I mean, a literal digital machine that goes out and finds money for you while you're sleeping. And I know that sounds like some kind of, late night infomercial pitch, but from everything we've been reading, this is just engineering.
It's engineering, and it's also economics. That's the promise here, right? It's the intersection of the two.
Okay, so let's lay out the mission. The specific goal for today is to break down, step by step, how to build a tool that scrapes freelance platforms, we're focusing on Upwork, to find the absolute perfect gigs for you, filters out all the garbage.
So much garbage.
So much. And then serves them up on a silver platter, or I guess a Google Sheet.
Which is way better than a silver platter if you're trying to be efficient. A silver platter needs polishing. A Google Sheet just needs a decision, a yes or a no.
That is a very good point. But look, before we get into the nuts and bolts of Python scripts and API keys, and I promise everyone listening, it is way less scary than it sounds, we need to set the stage.
We do.
The source material talks a lot about this idea of arbitrage and something it calls the overhang. Can you just unpack that for a second? Because it sounds like an economics lecture, but I have a feeling it's actually the most exciting part of this entire system.
It's the engine. It's the economic engine that makes the whole workflow valuable. If you don't get the economics, then the tech is just a cool toy. So let's start with the overhang. I want you to visualize a graph. On the horizontal axis, you have time, and there are two lines on this graph. The bottom line represents what the general public thinks AI can do.
Okay.
This is the glorified copy-paste tool perception. People think it's a chatbot. You ask it a question, it gives you an answer. Maybe it writes a kind of mediocre poem or a really generic cover letter.
Right. Write me an email to my boss asking for Friday off. That's the public's frame of reference, the chatbot trap.
Precisely, the chatbot trap. But then there's a second line, and it's way above that first one. This is the reality line. This is what the technology is actually capable of right now, today, if you know how to use it. We're talking about reasoning, planning, coding, executing really complex multi-step workflows.
Okay, so there's this big gap.
A huge gap. And that gap between the two lines, between public perception and technological reality, that's the overhang.
And that gap, that's where the money is.
That is the arbitrage opportunity. Arbitrage, in finance, it's profiting from a price difference between two markets. Here, we're talking about a difference in knowledge.
A knowledge gap.
A knowledge gap. You know that AI can solve these complex problems in seconds. The clients on Upwork, they still think these problems require hours and hours of manual human labor.
So to put this in a real-world context, a client posts a job. It says, I need someone to manually go through these 500 PDFs and pull out all the email addresses. They're thinking in terms of human labor. They expect to pay for, 10 hours of just boring, soul-crushing work?
Correct. And they're willing to pay, let's say, $400 for it because that's the going market rate for human drudgery. But if you have an agentic workflow that can do that exact same task in 4 minutes...
You capture that value.
You capture the value. You get paid for the outcome, not the time you spent. But, and this is the part the source material really hammers home, that window is closing.
Right, because eventually everyone figures it out. The public perception line starts to creep up.
It creeps up to meet the reality line. And when it does, that arbitrage opportunity, it just evaporates. Clients will start to expect AI speed and AI pricing. But right now, today, that window is wide open. And the whole point of this scraper we're about to build is to find those low-friction gigs, the ones that live in that gap before anyone else does.
Low-friction money. I love that phrase. Okay, so let's talk about the tool itself, the scraper. Why do we even need to build this? I mean, Upwork has a search bar. I can go to Upwork right now and type in AI automation. Why go through all this trouble?
Because manual searching is a trap. It's a complete time sink. The source material uses this really vivid analogy. It says, relying on the Upwork search bar is like trying to drink from the ocean with a straw.
That is a perfect image. And it feels so accurate to anyone who's ever done freelance work. You log in and it's just this deluge of stuff.
It's what the material calls the river of value. Capital flows to people who provide value efficiently. But if you're spending your day manually scrolling, clicking filters, reading poorly written job posts, trying to figure out if a client is even legit, you're wasting your most precious resource.
Your human bandwidth.
Exactly. You're spending all your energy on retrieval, not on execution.
So you burn out just finding the work, and then you have no energy left to actually do the work. It's decision fatigue before you've even made a single dollar.
That's it. The manual process is a bottleneck. The scraper removes the bottleneck entirely. And it's important to understand this isn't just a fancy search filter, it's an agent. It performs 3 really distinct functions that a human just can't do simultaneously and at scale. It's aggregation, filtration, and presentation.
Okay, let's break those down. First one, aggregation.
Aggregation is all about casting a super wide net. When you search manually, you usually search for one thing at a time, right? You type writer, then you delete that, and you type editor.
Yeah, one at a time.
The agent can pull jobs matching a massive array of keywords. We are talking like 175 different terms that you use to define your niche all at once. It just pulls everything that might be relevant into one single bucket.
Wow. Okay. That's like having 175 browser tabs open at the same time.
Yeah.
But your computer doesn't crash. So what's next? Filtration.
This is where it gets aggressive. I mean, really aggressive. It discards the noise. And on freelance platforms, there is so much noise.
Oh, yeah.
It filters out the jobs with terrible budgets, the clients with no payment history, the jobs that are 2 weeks old. It just ruthlessly cuts anything that doesn't meet your very strict criteria for low friction income. It doesn't have emotions like a human does. It doesn't have hope or FOMO. It just has logic.
No, but maybe this one will be good.
None of that. It just cuts it. And finally, presentation.
Right.
It delivers a clean, actionable list, in this case, a Google Sheet. And this is so important because it separates the hunting phase from what the source calls the killing phase.
Hunting versus killing.
Yeah. You wake up, you open the sheet, and you just decide, yes, no, yes, no. You are not searching anymore. You are deciding.
That mental shift from searching to deciding, that feels like a huge unlock. It turns you from a scavenger into an executive.
That's the goal.
Okay, so we know what it does. Now, I really want to get into the how. The source material goes into a lot of detail about the architecture of this thing. And it all revolves around this framework they call DO. DO. Directive, Orchestration, Execution.
The DO framework, yeah. This is the skeleton of any good, robust agentic workflow. Honestly, if you can understand this, you can build anything, not just a scraper. It's like the standard operating procedure for building reliable AI software.
Okay, so let's walk through it specifically for the Upwork scraper. First up, the directive.
The D.
The directive is the what? It's the high-level goal. In the source materials project structure, this is a file named upworkscrapeapply.md. The MD just stands for Markdown, which is, just a fancy way of saying it's a plain text file. And the really key thing here, from what I read, is that there's no code in the directive file. Right. I'm not writing Python or anything in here.
Zero code. None. It is 100% natural language. The best way to think about the directive is like a job description. You're writing a job description for a super smart, super fast intern.
Okay, I like that analogy.
You're telling this intern, here is your goal. You need to scrape Upwork. Here are the tools you're allowed to use. And here is the definition of done, which is a fully populated Google Sheet.
So I'm just writing in English. I'm literally typing, go find jobs that match these specific criteria.
Precisely. You define the inputs, the goal, and the boundaries. That's the directive. Then comes the orchestration, the O. This is the who.
And this is the agent itself, right? This is the LLM like Claude or GPT-4.
Correct. The agent acts as the project manager. It reads your directive, your job description, and then it figures out how to actually pull it off. It decides when to run the search, how to parse the results, where to store the data. It handles all the messy, nuanced logic.
What do you mean by messy logic?
Well, for example, a job post might use the word automation, but when you actually read it, it's asking for a manual data entry clerk.
Right, the buzzword soup that clients love to throw in there to sound modern.
Exactly. The orchestrator, the LLM, uses its reasoning capabilities to look at that and say, no, this isn't actually an automation gig, and it just skips it. It handles the nuance that a simple keyword search would totally miss.
Okay, that's a huge value add. So we have the boss, which is the directive. We have the project manager, which is the orchestration. Now we need the worker. The execute.
The execution is the how. This is where the actual code lives. In the file structure for the project, there's literally a folder called execution. And inside that folder, you have Python scripts. You'll see files like upworkscraper.py or upload-to-sheet.py.
Okay, now this is the part where I feel like some listeners might start to tense up. Python scripts. Wait, I thought this was no code. I don't know Python. I don't know how to write a for loop.
And this is probably the most crucial insight from the entire source material. You do not need to know Python. The agent writes the Python for you.
The agent writes its own tools.
Yes, it's incredible. You tell the agent, in plain English, I need a tool to scrape Upwork, and the agent will generate the upworkscraper.py script. But we should probably explain why we even use scripts at all. Why not just let the AI browse the web and do it? Why this extra step?
Yeah, that's a good question. If Claude is so smart, why can't it just, go to Upwork.com and start looking around?
It comes down to a really fundamental concept in AI engineering, the difference between probabilistic and deterministic systems.
Okay.
LLMs are probabilistic. They are like a creative, imaginative brain. If you ask an LLM to count to 100, it might actually skip a number. If you ask it to sort a list of 5,000 names, it might hallucinate a new name or get the order wrong. It's just predicting the next most likely word. It's not actually processing data in a structured way.
It's a poet, not a calculator.
That is a perfect way to put it. It's a poet, but code. A Python script. That is deterministic. If you tell a script to scrape 100 pages of search results, it will scrape exactly 100 pages every single time in milliseconds.
It doesn't get bored.
It doesn't get bored. It doesn't hallucinate. It is perfect at repetitive, data-heavy grunt work. So the architecture is just brilliant. The agent, which is the creative brain, builds the tool, which is the reliable script, and then the agent uses that tool to do the heavy lifting.
That is so smart. You're using the AI for what it's good at, reasoning and problem solving and coding, and you're using the script for what it's good at, which is brute force repetition and math. It's the best of both worlds.
Precisely. And that's how you create a system that is both intelligent and incredibly reliable.
Okay, so we've got our structure. The machine is designed. Now we need to fuel it. We need to tell this thing what to actually look for. We're moving to section 3, defining your niche. The source material talks about 175 keywords approach. That sounds like a lot. It sounds excessive. Why so many?
It sounds excessive from a human perspective, but it's absolutely necessary for the wide net strategy to work. See, most people, when they search Upwork, they search for job titles. They search for freelancer or writer or virtual assistant.
Right. The generic labels.
And that's where all the competition is. Everybody is searching for those terms. If you search for virtual assistant, you are competing against 50,000 other people doing the exact same thing.
So what's the alternative?
The strategy here is to search for tools and problems. You don't search for consultant. You search for Zapier. You search for make.com. You search for NAN, OpenAI API.
Okay, I see. Because if a client is specifically mentioning Zapier in their job post, it doesn't matter what they titled the job. You know they have a specific automation problem you can solve.
Exactly. It signals a very specific intent. If you want to find SOP standard operating procedure consulting gigs, you don't just search for SOP writer. That's too narrow. You search for Notion setup, process documentation, onboarding workflow, and even words like messy or disorganized.
Wait, messy. I love that. You're literally searching for the client's emotional pain points.
You're fishing for the symptoms of the problem. Things like data entry automation, PDF extraction, OCR. These are all keywords that just scream, I have a problem that an AI agent can solve for me. And the key is that the scraper uses OR logic.
So it's looking for a match with any of those 175 keywords.
Any of them, which creates this massive consolidated feed of opportunities that no human could ever manually search for. You'd have to run 175 separate searches and then try to combine the results. It would be impossible.
It's that drinking from the ocean thing again. The bot just drinks the whole ocean and filters out the little bits of gold.
Correct.
So speaking of filtering, let's talk about the filters. This is section 4. This is how we identify that low friction money we were talking about. The source material is very, very specific about the budget range. $200 to $500. Why that range specifically? Why not aim for the $5,000 gigs? Don't we want to make big money?
We do want to make big money, but this is about making it efficiently. The $200 to $500 range is what the material calls the sweet spot for agentic arbitrage.
The sweet spot.
Yeah, think about the client's psychology. Below $200, the client is often looking for the absolute cheapest labor, and they can be incredibly demanding for very little return. They're penny pinching. But above, say, $1,000 or $5,000, the whole game changes.
How so?
Well, clients start wanting Zoom calls. They want to see your portfolio. They want 3 rounds of interviews. They want to know your life story. It becomes very high friction.
Right. It stops being a task and it becomes a job.
It becomes a job, exactly.
Yeah.
But in that sweet spot, $200 to $500, that's a task. A client has a headache, and they just want to pay someone to make it go away quickly. It's below the threshold of heavy corporate scrutiny, but it's high enough to be incredibly profitable if you can use an agent to solve it in 15 minutes.
And that ties right into the next filter, which is fixed price versus hourly.
Oh, this is critical. You must filter for fixed price. This is pure arbitrage logic. Think about it. If you take an hourly job and you automate a 5-hour task down to 5 minutes, and you're charging, say, $50 an hour, you just made about $4.
You literally punished yourself for being efficient.
You did. The hourly model punishes efficiency. The fixed price model rewards it. If the client agrees to pay $300 for the outcome, they don't care if it takes you 10 hours or 10 minutes. So if you use an agent to do it in 10 minutes, you've effectively earned $1,800 an hour.
That's the math that changes everything. It really does.
Yeah.
It stops being about working and it starts being about solving.
It's a total mindset shift. And there are other filters too. Client history is a big one. You want to filter for payment verified and previous hires. You do not want your agent wasting its API credits, which cost real money, even if it's a small amount, analyzing jobs from clients who are just, window shopping.
Right. No tire kickers allowed.
And then there's freshness. The source recommends filtering for jobs posted less than 24 hours ago, or even better, less than 4 hours ago.
Seed.
Speed is your competitive advantage on these platforms. Being the first valid, well-written proposal really matters. And finally, competition level. You filter out any job that already has 50-plus proposals. You're looking for the blue ocean inside the platform. You want the job that was posted 20 minutes ago, has verified payment, offers $300 fixed, and has 0 other proposals.
That is the holy grail right there.
And it happens all the time, constantly. You just aren't fast enough to see it manually. But the bot is.
Okay, I am sold. I want to build this thing. Let's walk through the build process. Section 5. The source material takes us into the IDE, the integrated development environment. This is where the magic happens. Step 1 is the setup.
Right. So you open your IDE. The source mentions VS Code, but really any modern code editor works. The first thing you do is set up your end file.
The end file. That's the digital keychain you mentioned earlier, right?
Perfect analogy. It's just a simple text file where you store your secret keys, your Upwork API key, your Google Sheets API key, your OpenAI or Anthropic key. You keep them there so they're not written directly into your scripts. It's a security thing, but for us, it's just the place where the keys live.
Got it. Keys are on the keychain. Now, step 2, the prompt. This is where that natural language programming idea comes in. What am I actually typing here? Do I need to speak like a developer?
Not at all. You speak English. You're just typing plain text into the agent chat window in your IDE. You might type something like, create a directive to scrape Upwork for AI automation jobs, use a Python script for the actual scraping part, filter for fixed price only, output everything to a Google Sheet.
That's it. I'm not typing like import pandas as PAD or any of that stuff.
You are not coding, you are prompting. You're the architect. The AI is the general contractor.
And then step 3 happens, the thinking phase.
This is honestly just fascinating to watch. The agent, let's say we're using Claude, it reads your prompt and it breaks it down. It thinks, okay, to do this, I'm going to need a file structure. So it creates the directives folder. It creates the execution folder. Then it realizes, I need a library to scrape Upwork. So it installs that library for you. It realizes, I need to talk to Google Sheets. So it writes the connection script.
It's literally building the entire software project in front of your eyes.
It's acting like a senior software engineer, planning and executing the build.
But what happens when it breaks? Because, technology always breaks. Step 4 is iteration, or what the source calls self-annealing. I love this term. It sounds very sci-fi.
Self-annealing. Yeah, it's a concept from metallurgy. You heat metal and then cool it slowly to remove defects and make it stronger. In this context, it means the workflow is healing itself.
How does that work in practice?
So let's say the agent runs the script it just wrote, but Upwork changed something on their website overnight. A button name changed, the script crashes, you get an error, element not found.
Okay, normally that is where I would give up. Or I'd have to go to Stack Overflow and spend the next 3 hours trying to figure out what that error even means.
Right, but the agent, it sees the error. It reads the error message. It thinks to itself, the element name is wrong. The website must have updated. So it goes back into the Python code, rewrites the broken line, saves the file, and runs it again.
It fixes its own code without me telling it to?
Yes, automatically. You can watch the reasoning tab in your IDE, and you see it going through this loop. Error, tanalyze, stack, rewrite, run. And it keeps doing that until it gets a success. It anneals the system until it's robust and works perfectly.
That is wild. It's like having a mechanic living inside the engine while you're driving down the highway.
It's a great analogy. Ideally, this is something you're watching during the initial build phase. Once the system is stable and running smoothly, you just let it do its job.
Okay, so we've built it, it's annealed, it's running.
Yeah.
Now let's look at the output. Section 6. What do I actually get at the end of all this?
You get a beautiful, clean Google Sheet. It is the complete opposite of the chaotic, messy Upwork feed. It's a clean dashboard for making decisions.
What are the columns? What information am I seeing?
You'll see the job title, the client name, the budget, of course, and then, most importantly, the link and a match score.
A match score. That's interesting. Is that like the agent's opinion on how good the job is for me?
Exactly. It's based on the directive you gave it.
Mm-hmm.
If you told it that you really prioritize Zapier jobs, then any job with that keyword gets a higher score. It helps you prioritize the list so you can focus on the best opportunities first.
And there's a one-click apply link.
Yes. This is a huge time saver. The scraper constructs a specific URL that when you click it, takes you directly to the proposal submission page for that exact job. It bypasses the search, the feed, the browsing. You go straight from your spreadsheet to the application.
So the whole workflow becomes I wake up, I make coffee, I open the sheet. There are, say, 10 new rows. Let's role play the decision logic here. I want to feel how this works.
Yeah. Okay. Row 1. Build a chatbot for a dentist. Budget $300. Status fresh, posted an hour ago. Match score high.
Okay. That is a classic low-friction job. I have a template for that. I could probably spin that up in an hour. That's a definite yes. Click that link.
Good. Row 2. Write 50 blog posts about cryptocurrency. Budget $50.
Nope. Hard pass. That's incredibly low value, super high effort. I'm deleting that row from my sheet immediately.
Row 3. Fix my Zapier automation. It's sending double emails. Budget $200.
Oh, that's the dream right there. That is a 5-minute fix, maybe 10. That is a perfect quick hit. Absolutely, yes.
You see how the psychology just completely changes. You are not looking for work anymore. You are processing a queue of qualified opportunities. It turns freelancing from a hustle into a simple administrative task. Yes, no. Yes, no.
It feels much more like being an executive managing deal flow than a freelancer scrambling for scraps.
That is 100% the goal.
So, Section 7. How do we actually run this thing day to day? Do I have to open the black and green terminal window and type like a hacker in the movies?
Yo.
Sudo run script.
No, not at all. You are still in that same agent chat window in your IDE. You simply type in plain English, run the Upwork scraper.
Just run the Upwork scraper. That's the command.
That's the command. Or, and this is the beauty of the natural language interface, you can be dynamic. You could type, run the Upwork scraper, but just for document processing jobs in Texas. The agent can understand that, update the query parameters on the fly, pass them to the Python script, and execute the new specific search.
That's amazing. So it's not a static tool, it's a responsive partner. And how often are we running this?
The source material suggests running it every morning to fill your pipeline for the day. That's the starting point. Eventually, the goal, and this is getting into more advanced territory, is to move the whole thing to the cloud. You can set it up on a server with webhooks or a scheduler so it runs every single hour automatically. But for now, when you're starting out, just running it manually in your IDE while you drink your coffee is more than enough to start making money.
I like the coffee routine. It sounds manageable. It builds the habit.
It does.
Let's try to ground all of this in one final world example before we wrap up. Section 8. The source material talks about finding an SOP consulting gig. Let's walk through that because, honestly, SOPs, standard operating procedures, and they're so boring to write. Why would anyone pay good money for them?
That is exactly why people pay for them, because they're boring and time-consuming, but businesses absolutely need them to scale. They're essential but painful. So, the query. You've told your agent to look for businesses that are struggling with organization.
So the scraper is scanning for those emotional keywords we talked about. Messy, disorganized, need help documenting, standardize. It's looking for chaos.
Exactly. And it's using our filters, so it immediately throws out all the virtual assistant for $5 an hour jobs. And then it finds one. The job post says, need someone to document our onboarding process for new hires. It's all in my head and it's a total mess. $400 fixed price.
Okay, so normally I would look at that and think, ugh, I have to schedule a call with this person, interview them, record it, transcribe the whole thing, write it out. That's like a full day of really tedious work.
You have another agentic workflow, one from the same course we're analyzing. And this other workflow is designed specifically to ingest an audio transcript and automatically generate a perfectly formatted SOP document.
Right, so my friction assessment totally changes. The cost of doing the job, for me, drops to almost zero.
Completely. And that's the arbitrage the expert in the source material is talking about. You get paid $400 for a problem, the messy onboarding process that takes you maybe 10 minutes of agent compute time to solve. You get on a quick call, you record the client for 10 minutes just talking, you feed that audio file to your SOP writer agent, and it spits out a polished PDF.
And the client is thrilled because their huge, messy problem is solved. They don't know, and they don't care that an AI did most of the work.
They paid for the solution, not for your suffering. The scraper is just the tool that connects you to these incredible arbitrage opportunities. It finds the people who have the exact problem that your other agents can solve cheaply and instantly.
That just brings it all together so perfectly. The scraper is the eyes. It sees the money.
It is the eyes of the entire operation.
This has been, honestly, this has been mind-blowing. It really shifts the perspective from AI as a cool piece of tech to AI is a legitimate business partner.
It's a leverage multiplier, pure and simple. While other people are browsing and scrolling, you're executing.
So let's wrap this up then. We have built the scraper. It's running. We have a beautiful Google Sheet full of high-value, low-effort targets. But
having the lead is only half the battle, right? You see the job. You see the $400. But someone else might see it too. You still have to win the bid. You still have to convince that client to hire you and not someone else.
And that leads us perfectly into the next step of the process. Because if we're going to automate the search, well, shouldn't we automate the pitch too?
We absolutely should. And we can.
You can find the work, episode 3. We auto-write the proposals.